The night was cold, and the streets of the city were almost empty. Tall buildings stood like silent giants, their windows glowing with warm yellow light. But none of that warmth touched the lonely figure walking in the shadows. She was small, thin, and her clothes were torn. To anyone passing by, she looked like another homeless girl lost in the endless city. But she was not human. She was something else, something from far away. Her large eyes reflected the neon signs, and if someone looked close enough, they would see a faint glow inside them. She kept her head low and moved carefully, always afraid of being noticed. The girl's stomach growled. She had not eaten for 2 days. She searched near the garbage bins behind a restaurant, hoping for something to fill her empty belly. The smell of rotten food made her nose wrinkle, but she forced herself to dig through the trash. She had done this many times before. It was not just hunger that made her heart heavy. It was the memory of her home, a planet destroyed in silence and fire. She had escaped, but she had lost everything. Now she wandered on Earth unseen, unwanted, and alone. Her fingers touched something smooth and flat under a pile of old newspapers. She pulled it out, expecting maybe a broken phone or useless junk. But when she wiped off the dirt, her heart beat faster. It was a wallet. A real leather wallet, thick and heavy. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside were crisp bills, more money than she had ever touched on this planet. But that was not all. There were cards, shiny official-looking cards with a golden emblem. Then her eyes froze on the photograph inside an identification card. It was the face of a man, dressed in a dark suit with a serious expression. His name was printed clearly along with his title. He was not just any man. He was a diplomat, an important figure who spoke for his country in front of the world. Her breath caught. She had seen his face before on screens, giving speeches about peace and security. People listened to him, respected him, and sometimes feared him. And now she held his wallet in her hands. Her thoughts raced. She could run to the black market and sell it for food and a place to sleep. She could disappear into the alleys and survive a few more weeks. But another thought pushed into her mind. If she returned the wallet, maybe he would listen to her. Maybe he would believe her story. Maybe this was her only chance to be seen, to be more than just a shadow hiding in the streets. But then fear rose up. What if he did not believe her? What if he reported her, and scientists or soldiers came to lock her in a cage? She had seen how humans treated their own poor, their own strangers. How would they treat an alien refugee? Her hands shook as she closed the wallet again. The leather felt heavy, like it carried not just money and cards but a choice, a dangerous choice. She slipped the wallet into the inside of her coat and stepped back into the street. The wind cut across her face, sharp and cold, but she hardly felt it. Her mind was spinning with questions. Should she hide? Should she run? Or should she find him? Every step she took seemed to echo louder, like the city itself was watching her. The glow from her eyes grew brighter in the darkness, betraying the storm of thoughts inside her. A car drove past, its headlights sweeping over her for a moment. She froze, pressing herself into the wall until the car was gone. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. She imagined the man's face again, the diplomat. He looked powerful, untouchable, but now he had lost something important and she was the one holding it. A strange feeling filled her chest. For the first time since leaving her home planet, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she held a piece of control over her fate. The night grew deeper, and the city grew quieter. She found an old bench near the park and sat down. She pulled the wallet out again, staring at the name, the title, the photograph. The man's eyes in the picture seemed to stare back at her, as if asking a question she could not answer. She whispered softly, almost afraid of her own voice. This could change everything. The wind carried her words into the darkness. Around her, the city continued to live its human life. People inside warm apartments, families laughing, traffic signals blinking red and green. But she knew her night was no longer the same. The wallet was not just an object. It was a key to danger or a key to hope. She did not know which. As she clutched it close to her chest, the decision pressed down on her. Every choice felt heavy and every path looked dangerous. But one thing was certain. The discovery of that wallet had set something in motion, something that could no longer be stopped. Morning light touched the city, but for the alien girl, the night had never truly ended. She had not slept. She sat on the bench with the wallet pressed tightly against her chest. The air was cold, and every sound seemed sharper. The hum of traffic, the bark of a dog far away, the footsteps of early workers rushing past her without a glance. None of them knew what she carried. None of them knew the storm of choices inside her mind. She opened the wallet again, staring at the face of the diplomat. His eyes in the photograph seemed calm, proud, almost untouchable. She wondered what he was doing at that moment. Perhaps he was searching for his lost wallet. Perhaps he had already called his guards or his drivers. Important men like him did not usually lose things. Important men like him had people to protect them, to search for them, to hide their mistakes. Yet now, by strange chance, his wallet had ended up in the hands of a homeless alien girl. The thought was almost unreal. She tried to imagine herself walking into his tall glass office building, standing before him and handing it back. She tried to imagine his reaction. Would he smile? Would he thank her? Or would he notice the glow in her eyes, the slight shimmer of her skin, and call the authorities? The fear made her stomach twist. Humans were not kind to strangers. She had seen how they shouted at beggars, how they ignored the poor lying on sidewalks, and she was not even one of them. She remembered the first time she landed on this planet. She had hoped to find kindness, but instead she had found silence and rejection. People had looked at her with suspicion, or they had looked away as if she did not exist. Only the dark alleys had given her shelter. Only trash bins had given her food. If this diplomat discovered what she truly was, would he treat her differently? Or would he treat her worse? She closed her eyes and tried to imagine the other choice, selling the wallet. On the black market, it would bring food, maybe even weeks of survival. She could disappear into the city again, just another shadow, safe, hidden, forgotten. But the thought felt heavy and empty. It would mean more days of running, more nights of hunger, more years of being nothing. She wanted more. She wanted to be seen. Her mind drifted back to her homeworld, now gone. She remembered the blue skies, the crystal towers, the way her people used to sing in harmony. All of it had vanished when the war came, when the fire consumed her planet. She was the last of her kind, or so she believed. She carried those memories like ashes inside her, and they burned with every breath. She asked herself, was she sent here just to survive, or was she meant for something greater? Her hands shook as she traced the letters on the diplomat's ID card. His name, his position, his authority, they were symbols of power in this human world. If she reached him, perhaps he could change her fate. Perhaps he could give her more than scraps of food and shadows to hide in. But the risk was almost unbearable. If she failed, if she was rejected or exposed, there would be no second chance. She rose from the bench and began to walk, her legs weak but determined. She followed the signs pointing to the city's heart, where the tall buildings pierced the clouds. Each step felt like a test. People rushed past her, busy with their lives, unaware of the girl carrying the future in her pocket. The closer she came to the center, the louder the noise grew. The roar of cars, the honk of horns, the chatter of crowds. She kept her head low, hiding her glowing eyes beneath her messy hair. At one point, she stopped in front of a shop window. Televisions flickered inside, showing news reports. Her heart jumped when she saw the diplomat's face on the screen. The reporter's voice spoke about a missing wallet, about security concerns, about how the diplomat had not commented yet. She pressed her hand against the glass, staring at his image. It felt like he was calling to her, pulling her toward a decision she could no longer avoid. Fear and hope fought inside her. Fear told her to turn back, to vanish into the shadows again. Hope told her to go forward, to face him, to take the risk that might change her life. She knew hope was dangerous. Hope could break her heart. But without hope, she was nothing. She turned away from the shop and continued walking. The buildings grew taller, the streets cleaner, the people richer. She felt smaller with every block she passed, but she kept moving. At last, she stood across the street from the diplomat's office tower. It rose into the sky like a mountain of glass and steel, guarded by men in dark uniforms. Her hands clutched the wallet so tightly her knuckles turned white. The choice was before her now. Run away and survive in silence, or walk inside and risk everything. She stood there trembling, staring at the great doors of the building, and whispered to herself, I have to decide. Now. The traffic light changed, and the crowd around her began to cross the street. She took one step forward, her heart beating like thunder. The decision had been made. The glass tower loomed above her like a giant, its walls reflecting the pale morning sky. The alien girl stood on the other side of the street, clutching the diplomat's wallet close to her chest. Her feet felt heavy, but the crowd pushed her forward. She crossed with the others, her heart racing so loudly she feared everyone around her could hear it. The building's entrance was guarded by two tall men in black suits. Their eyes were sharp, scanning every person who walked in. She slowed her steps, fear rising like a shadow inside her. She had hidden among humans before, but never in a place so full of power, so full of danger. Her glowing eyes could betray her at any second. She lowered her head and pulled her hood over her face, trying to look like nothing more than a tired, homeless girl. When she reached the doors, one of the guards raised his hand. "Stop," he said firmly. His voice was deep, his eyes suspicious. "Do you have business here?" Her throat went dry. Words stuck in her mouth. She thought of running, but her legs would not move. Slowly, she pulled the wallet from her coat and held it up with shaking hands. I found this," she whispered. The guard's eyes narrowed. He took the wallet carefully, opened it, and his expression changed at once. He looked at his partner. "It's his," he said under his breath. Then he turned back to her. "Wait here." The girl's chest tightened. "Wait here." Those words felt like a trap. She wanted to run. But before she could move, the guard stepped closer, blocking her path. His face was unreadable. He spoke into a small device on his collar, and moments later, the glass door slid open. A man walked out. Not just any man, but the one from the photograph. The diplomat himself. He was taller than she expected, his dark suit perfectly pressed, his steps calm and confident. His face was serious, but when his eyes fell on the girl, something flickered in them. Curiosity, maybe even suspicion. The guard handed him the wallet. "Sir, this girl brought it." The diplomat opened the wallet, checked inside, and nodded. His eyes returned to her. "You found this?" His voice was steady, controlled, but sharp like a blade. She swallowed hard. Her lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Then softly she said, "Yes." For a moment, silence hung in the air. The crowd moved around them, people entering and leaving the building, but all she could hear was the beating of her heart. She felt his gaze piercing through her hood, through her weak disguise, as if he could see the truth hiding beneath her skin. "Come with me," he said finally. His tone was not cruel, but it left no room for argument. Her legs felt weak, but she followed as he turned and walked back inside. The guard stepped aside, their eyes still watching her with suspicion. The glass doors closed behind her, cutting off the noise of the street. Inside, the air was cool and sharp, smelling faintly of polished wood and metal. The lobby was wide, filled with shining floors and tall columns. People in suits walked briskly, their shoes clicking against the floor, but all of them moved aside for the diplomat. No one questioned him. He led her toward a private elevator. When the doors closed and they were alone, she felt the walls pressing in. She could feel his eyes on her, studying her, measuring her. She wanted to speak, but fear held her tongue. At last, he broke the silence. "You don't look like the kind of person who usually finds wallets like this," he said quietly. His words carried weight, as though he was speaking more than what they meant. Her chest tightened. Did he know? Could he sense it already? She lowered her gaze and whispered, "I didn't steal it." His expression did not change. "I believe you," he replied, though his tone was unreadable. The elevator doors opened and they stepped into a smaller, quieter hallway. At the end was an office, its doors heavy and carved with the symbol of his nation. He pushed them open and gestured for her to enter. The room was large but quiet, the windows stretching from floor to ceiling. From here she could see the whole city below, alive and busy, yet she felt trapped in a cage of glass and power. The diplomat closed the doors behind them. For the first time, they were truly alone. He walked around his desk, placed the wallet down, and then turned back to her. "Who are you?" he asked. The question hung in the air like thunder. Her lips trembled. She had carried her secret for so long, hiding it behind shadows and silence. But now, standing before this man, the choice returned to her. Lie and escape, or speak and risk everything. Her glowing eyes lifted to meet his. For the first time, she did not look away. I'm not from here," she whispered. The words broke the silence like glass shattering, and in that moment, she knew there was no going back. The words hung in the air like a secret too heavy for the walls to hold. "I am not from here." The diplomat did not move at first. His face remained calm, but his eyes sharpened, watching every detail of the strange girl standing before him. Her hood slipped back slightly, and for the first time the light in her eyes glimmered openly. Not the reflection of the city's glass towers, not the tricks of neon lights. This glow came from within her. The diplomat leaned back slowly against his desk. He folded his hands together and said in a quiet voice, "Explain." The alien girl felt her knees weaken. She wanted to run, but the door behind her was closed, guarded not by men but by the weight of her own choice. She swallowed and tried to steady her voice. "My world is gone," she whispered. "Destroyed. I escaped, but no one else. No one survived." For the first time, the diplomat's expression shifted. His eyebrows tightened not in anger but in thought. He had spent years listening to lies and half-truths in conference rooms, but something in her trembling voice struck him differently. It did not sound like invention. It sounded like grief. "Go on," he said, his tone careful, balanced like a man walking on ice. She took a shaky breath. "I landed here months ago. I thought maybe I could find safety. But humans do not welcome strangers. They did not see me. They looked past me as if I was invisible. I had no food, no place to stay. I survived in shadows." Her fingers tightened around the edge of her coat. "Then I found your wallet. I thought maybe it was a chance. Maybe you would listen." The diplomat's eyes never left her. His silence pressed against her chest, making her heart pound harder. She wanted him to say something, anything, but he simply studied her as if she were a puzzle only he could solve. At last, he rose from his chair and stepped closer. She flinched, her instinct telling her to retreat, but her back hit the glass wall. He stopped just a few steps away. His gaze softened, but only slightly. "Do you know what you are asking of me?" he said. "If what you say is true, then you are the first of your kind humanity has ever met. And you come to me alone, without proof, without protection. Do you understand the risk?" Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I understand. But I have nothing else. No one else. If you turn me away, I disappear. If you hand me to your soldiers, I die in a cage. You are my only chance." The room felt colder now. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that inside this office, history was unfolding. The diplomat paced slowly, his hands behind his back. His mind raced through possibilities, political chaos, world panic, questions of power. He had spent years building trust among nations, and now in front of him stood a secret that could shatter everything. Finally, he stopped and faced her again. "Show me," he said firmly. "If you are who you say you are. Show me proof." Her breath caught. To reveal herself fully was dangerous, but she knew there was no other way. Slowly, she pulled back her hood, letting her face emerge in the pale office light. Her skin shimmered faintly like silver dust under her cheeks, her glowing eyes fixed on him, no longer hidden. She opened her palm, and with a soft hum, a faint light appeared. Energy from within her body, alive and trembling like a small star. The diplomat's eyes widened. His lips parted, but no words came out. For a man who had spoken to kings and generals without hesitation, the sight left him speechless. The light faded, and she lowered her hand. Silence filled the room again. At last he spoke in a low, steady tone. "You are telling me the truth." Tears blurred her vision. She nodded, whispering, "Yes." He walked back to his desk, pressing his fingers against his temples. "Do you realize what this means?" he said. "If the world learns of you, they will not celebrate. They will fear. Governments will demand control. Scientists will demand your body. Enemies will try to use you as a weapon." He turned, his voice sharper now. "And yet you came here. To me, why?" Her answer was simple, but it carried the weight of her entire journey. "Because I saw your speeches. You spoke of peace, of hope. I thought maybe you would see me as more than a shadow." The diplomat closed his eyes for a moment. He felt the weight of her words pressing against the years of politics, lies, and compromises he had endured. When he opened his eyes again, his voice had changed. Softer, human. "You should not have trusted me," he said quietly. "But you did." For the first time, her lips curved into a fragile smile. "Because I had no one else." The diplomat walked closer again, but this time his steps were slower, less guarded. He studied her glowing eyes, the shimmer of her skin, the exhaustion in her voice. Then he said something that surprised even himself. "I will not turn you in." "Not yet." Her chest rose sharply with hope. "Then you will help me?" His reply came after a long pause. "I don't know if I can, but I will listen." And with those words, the girl realized her fate was no longer hers alone. It was now tied to him, this diplomat, this human with power, who had the choice to either protect her or expose her to a world unready for the truth. The reveal was complete. But the story was only beginning. The office was silent, but inside the diplomat's mind there was no silence at all. His thoughts clashed like storms colliding, tearing at one another. He had faced war councils, peace treaties, and hostile negotiations, but never had he been forced to decide something so dangerous, so personal. The alien girl stood before him, her glowing eyes filled with fragile hope, and he knew that whatever he chose now could change the fate of the world. He walked toward the tall window, staring out at the city below. Cars moved like rivers of light. People walked on sidewalks with coffee in hand, thinking about jobs and families, not knowing that only a few floors above them stood a secret that could shake their future. He pressed his hands against the glass, his reflection staring back at him. He looked like a man in control, but he did not feel like one. Behind him, the girl's voice was soft. "You said you will listen. That is all I ask." Her words cut into him. Listening sounded easy, but listening meant involvement, and involvement meant danger. If he chose to protect her, he would become her shield. Governments would question his loyalty. His enemies would see it as weakness. His allies would see it as betrayal. He imagined the headlines, the furious debates, the calls from world leaders. Diplomat hides alien refugee. The chaos would be endless. And yet, he remembered her trembling voice when she said she had no one else. He remembered the small light in her hand, fragile but real. For years he had spoken about peace, about trust between nations, about giving a chance to the powerless. But those words had always been safe, contained in speeches and documents. Now they stood in front of him in the form of a homeless alien girl. Could he live with himself if he turned her away? He turned slowly, facing her again. She was standing close to the door, as if ready to run if he made the wrong choice. Her thin figure looked so small in the wide office. Her hands twisted nervously at the edges of her coat. She seemed ready to vanish into shadows once more, but there was still that flicker in her eyes, hope mixed with fear. "You don't understand the weight of this," he said firmly. "If the world discovers you, there will be panic. People do not welcome what they cannot understand. Some will call you a threat, some will try to use you, and once your secret is known, you will never be safe again." Her reply was simple. "I have never been safe." Those words stopped him like a blow. He thought of his own life, protected homes, armored cars, guards who followed his every step. He had been surrounded by safety, while she had been hunted by shadows, abandoned on the streets. And yet she still stood here asking for trust. He closed his eyes, letting silence stretch between them. Finally he spoke, his voice lower. "I have two choices. I can call security now. Within minutes you would be taken to a place where scientists would study you. The world would know, and I would be remembered as the man who revealed the first alien on Earth. Or," his words slowed, heavy as stone, "I can keep your secret. I can protect you. But if I do, I put myself at risk. I put my nation at risk, perhaps even my family." Her glowing eyes met his. "And if you do nothing? If you let me walk away?" He hesitated. That was the third choice, the one he hadn't said aloud. Let her vanish back into the alleys. Pretend none of this had happened. Keep his life simple, safe. But even as he thought of it, he knew it was impossible. He had seen her. He had heard her truth. He could not erase that from his mind. The girl stepped closer, her voice trembling but strong. "I don't want to be your weapon. I don't want to cause war. I only want to live. Isn't that enough?" The diplomat stared at her for a long time. Then finally his shoulders dropped as though the weight of his decision had pressed him down. "No," he said softly. "It is not enough." Her face fell, her body tensing as if ready to run. But then he added, "It is not enough for me to simply let you live in shadows. If you stay hidden, the world will keep breaking itself with fear and hate. Perhaps you are not just a refugee. Perhaps you are a chance to prove that something different can exist among us." Her breath caught. "Then you will help me?" His answer came after a pause, but it was steady. "Yes, I will help you. But understand this. Once I step into this with you, there is no turning back. The world will come for us both." Tears filled her glowing eyes. For the first time since she had landed on Earth, she felt seen, believed. "Then I am not alone anymore." The diplomat looked out once more at the city below. He had made his choice, a dangerous one, a choice that could end his career, his safety, even his life. but it was also a choice that might change the world forever. He turned back to her, his voice quiet but firm. You will stay hidden here for now. No one must know, not yet, but soon. The world will have to face you. And when that day comes, I will stand beside you. The girl lowered her head, her hands trembling. Not with fear this time, but with fragile hope. The choice had been made. The storm was coming. And they would face it together. For a few days, the girl stayed hidden inside the diplomat's private quarters. His office became her cage and her shelter at the same time. Curtains stayed drawn, doors locked, and only trusted staff were allowed near. To them, she was invisible. To the world, she did not exist. But secrets never stay hidden for long. One evening, as the city lights flickered awake, the diplomat sat in his chair, staring at reports spread across his desk. He had tried to keep her a secret, but questions had already begun to rise. Security guards whispered about the strange girl who entered his building. A journalist had caught a blurred photo of her leaving the lobby days earlier. Online, theories spread like fire. Who was the girl with the diplomat? Why did he hide her? The girl watched the screens as news anchors speculated. They showed the diplomat's face, serious as always, but now surrounded by doubt. They asked if he was involved in a scandal. Some said it was corruption. Others claimed it was something stranger. The girl's heart sank. She had not wanted this. She had only wanted a chance to live. The diplomat turned the volume down. This was always going to happen, he said quietly. Secrets cannot breathe forever. Sooner or later the world notices. Her glowing eyes filled with fear. Then, what will they do if they find out about me? He looked at her with steady eyes. Some will be afraid. Some will hate, but some may see hope. The next day, things grew worse. A leaked message appeared on international channels. An anonymous voice claiming that an alien had been discovered in the city and that a diplomat was protecting her. Governments demanded answers. Scientists begged for evidence. The streets filled with protesters, some holding signs that said, "Protect humanity," others holding signs that said, "Welcome the visitor." The girl stood by the window, watching from behind the glass as people gathered outside. Their voices reached her even from high above, a mix of anger and curiosity. She pressed her hand to the window, her chest heavy.
They don't even know me, she whispered.
But already they choose sides. The diplomat stood beside her, his arms folded tightly. This is what humans do. They fear what they don't understand. They argue before they listen. And now you are no longer just a girl. You are a symbol. She turned to him, confusion in her eyes. A symbol? He nodded. Yes, to some you are proof that life beyond Earth exists. To others, you are a threat that could destroy us. Your face, your story, people will use it for their own battles. She stepped back, trembling. I never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted to live. His voice softened. I know. But sometimes the world gives us roles we never asked for. By evening, world leaders had called emergency meetings. Behind closed doors, they argued fiercely. Some demanded the girl be handed over to international science councils. Others demanded she be treated as a refugee under human law. A few even suggested military action, fearing her presence meant an invasion was near. The debates leaked to the press, feeding the fire. Meanwhile, the diplomat received messages on his private line. Some were threats, give her up or pay the price. Others were desperate pleas, show us the truth. He read them silently, his face calm, though inside his chest unease grew heavier with every hour. The girl noticed. They will not let me stay hidden, she said softly. No, he admitted. The world has already seen your shadow. Soon they will demand the light. That night she sat on the floor of the office, hugging her knees, staring into the dark. The diplomat watched her from his desk, the weight of his decision pressing harder than ever. If he revealed her, he risked chaos. If he continued to hide her, he risked war between nations. Either way, the world was already changing because of her. Then, in the silence, a sudden sound filled the air, a faint signal buzzing from the diplomat's secure monitor. He looked up sharply. The screen displayed strange waves, not from Earth. His heart stopped. The signal repeated, a pattern too precise to be noise. The girl lifted her head, her glowing eyes wide. That frequency, it's from my people. Her voice trembled. It means, I am not alone. The diplomat stared at her. His mind raced. If her people were alive, if others had survived, then everything would grow even more dangerous. The world would not just argue about a single refugee. They would prepare for contact, maybe even conflict, he whispered to himself, almost afraid of his own words. The world wanted proof. Now it will come, whether we are ready or not. The girl stood, her hands shaking. For the first time since she arrived on Earth, her loneliness cracked. Somewhere out there, others like her still existed. But the thought did not bring only hope. It brought fear of what would follow. Outside the office, the city pulsed with voices and lights. Inside, two figures stood in silence. An alien girl who carried the weight of survival, and a diplomat who carried the burden of choice. The world was no longer guessing. The world was watching, and the storm that was coming would be unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The signal pulsed again, sharp and rhythmic, filling the diplomat's private office with an electric hum. The alien girl stood frozen, her glowing eyes wide, her lips parted in disbelief. For months she had believed she was the last of her kind, a lonely shadow wandering a strange planet. But now the sound told her otherwise. Somewhere beyond the sky someone was calling. The diplomat's fingers tightened on the edge of his desk. He had seen wars start over less, over borders, over resources, over a single wrong word. And now an alien message had reached Earth. It was proof beyond all debate. No one could deny it anymore. Humanity was no longer alone. The girl pressed her hand to the screen, her voice trembling. It is a distress signal. Old but clear, my people. They are alive. Her words shook with equal parts hope and fear. The diplomat studied her carefully. Alive, he repeated. Then they will come. And when they arrive, the world will not meet them with open arms. They will meet them with fear. With weapons. Her chest rose and fell quickly. They are not soldiers. They are survivors like me. He turned away, pacing toward the tall window. The city below was alive with protests, flashing cameras, and endless noise. Survivors or not, the world will not care. To them, you are the unknown, and the unknown is always dangerous. For a long moment, silence filled the office. Then the diplomat spoke again, his voice firm but low. You must decide, girl. Do you wish to reveal yourself fully, to stand before the world and claim your place? Or do you wish to disappear, to hide until this storm passes? Her glowing eyes fixed on him. And what would you choose? He paused. His reflection in the glass looked tired, older than ever before. If I choose with my heart, I would protect you. If I choose with my duty, I would hand you over to the world. But now, neither choice is safe. Before she could reply, the office phone rang, a secure line, one that only the highest leaders could reach. He picked it up slowly. A voice on the other end spoke urgently, though she could not hear the words. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. When he hung up, his face was pale. They know, he said. The signal was detected by global satellites. Every major government is aware. They are preparing responses. The girl's breath caught. Responses? What do you mean? He looked at her grimly. Some want to welcome. Some want to destroy. Armies are already on alert. The world has minutes, not years, to decide what you mean to them. The air in the room seemed to thicken, pressing against her chest. She stepped closer to him, her voice sharp with fear. You said you would stand beside me. Will you still? He met her gaze. For a long time he said nothing. Then slowly he nodded. Yes, if the world must see you, they will see you as more than a weapon. They will see you as life. The next morning the world watched as cameras gathered outside the diplomat's building. Rumors had become unbearable, the pressure unstoppable. At last the great doors opened, and the diplomat stepped out with the alien girl by his side. Gasps erupted, shouts filled the air. Her glowing eyes were uncovered, her silver shimmer visible in the daylight. The crowd roared. Some cried in awe, others screamed in terror. Reporters shouted questions, soldiers raised their weapons, but the diplomat raised his hand for silence. His voice carried strong across the plaza. This girl is not our enemy. She is not a danger. She is a survivor. She is proof that we are not alone, and that we must choose not fear but understanding. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. Cameras flashed. People held their breath. The girl stood beside him, trembling but unbroken. And then, another sound filled the sky. Not the hum of city life, not the cries of the crowd. It was louder, deeper, a vibration that shook the glass towers and rattled the ground beneath their feet. The girl's eyes widened as she looked up. High above the city, the clouds tore apart. A massive shadow spread across the sky. An enormous ship, dark and silent, descending through the atmosphere. Its size dwarfed the buildings, its presence undeniable. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some screamed and ran, others fell to their knees. Soldiers pointed their weapons at the sky, shouting orders. The girl whispered, her voice breaking with shock. They came. They found me. The diplomat stared upward, his face pale, his body rigid. The ship's lights flashed in strange patterns, the same rhythm as the signal on his monitor. The world had been waiting for proof. Now proof had arrived. The diplomat's voice, low but steady, cut through the panic. Then the real question begins. Not if we are alone, but if we are ready. And as the ship hovered above the city, its shadow swallowing the sun, the story of the homeless alien girl was no longer just hers. It was the world's.